President Biden joins other world leaders and World War II veterans in Normandy to commemorate the 80th anniversary of D-Day. And Israel strikes a school in Gaza it says was the location of a Hamas compound, as local officials say dozens have been killed. The morning rundown starts now.
From the Straight Arrow News Studio, bringing the stories that matter to you from across the United States and around the world. This is the Morning Rundown.
Today is Thursday, June 6th. Thank you for joining us. I'm Kara Rucker. This morning, President Joe Biden is among the dozens of world leaders who are commemorating the 80th anniversary of D-Day in France. They are joined by the remaining World War II veterans from the U.S., Britain, and Canada who took part in the Allied forces' surprise attack 8 decades ago. The president, along with the First Lady, landing in Normandy earlier today after arriving in Paris on Wednesday to begin his 5-day trip in France. Biden will be joined by French President Emmanuel Macron, Britain's Prince William, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to mark the anniversary. Around 200 World War II veterans, many of them now 100 years old and older, are set to take part in the events. It was on June 6, 1944, when more than 150,000 Allied soldiers stormed the beaches of Normandy to drive out the forces of Nazi Germany. 3 more witnesses took the stand in Hunter Biden's federal gun trial on Wednesday, including 2 of his exes and a gun store employee. His former girlfriend, Zoe Keston, testified about Hunter Biden's history of crack cocaine use in the months before he bought a gun in 2018. Prosecutors in the case are trying to prove the president's son purposely lied about his drug use to illegally buy the gun. Keston testified she witnessed Hunter Biden smoking crack in late September 2018, just weeks before the purchase. His ex-wife, Kathleen Buell, also took the stand, describing how Hunter Biden's drug use impacted their family. He and Buell divorced in 2017. The gun store clerk who sold Hunter Biden the gun also testified, telling the jury he watched Hunter Biden fill out the form to purchase the firearm, and when asked what Hunter wrote on the form that asked if he used drugs, the store clerk responded he wrote no. Hallie Biden, the widow of Beau Biden, is said to be among 6 witnesses to testify today. Prosecutors have indicated they could be ready to rest their case as soon as this afternoon. A Democrat-led effort to move forward with legislation that would codify the right to access contraception nationwide failed in the U.S. Senate on Wednesday. The final vote came down to 51 in favor of the measure and 39 against it, with just 2 Republicans siding with the Democrats. It needed 60 votes to move forward. The legislation was first introduced in 2022 after the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, striking down the federal right to abortion. Senate Republicans argue the legislation is a political stunt in an election year, and that it's unnecessary as contraception is already legal and available in every state. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer spoke to reporters after the vote, defending the motion.
So make one thing clear. Today was not a show vote. This was a show us who you are vote. And Senate Republicans showed the American people exactly who they are. They showed that they're not willing to stand up and protect something that 92% of Americans support.
Schumer says he intends to bring a package introduced earlier this week to protect access to IVF treatments up for a vote in the coming days. Now to the latest in the war in Gaza. Israel says its military has struck a school that contained a Hamas compound. Israel has long accused Hamas of using critical civilian facilities like schools and children's hospitals as hideouts and places to store their weapons. Israeli officials say the airstrike early this morning killed fighters who were involved in Hamas's terror attack on October 7th. The Hamas-run media rejects those claims, saying the strike by Israeli fighter jets killed at least 30 people, including women and children who were seeking shelter inside the United Nations school in central Gaza. The Israeli military says it took steps to reduce the risk of harming civilians before launching the attack. The strike comes a day after the Israeli military announced a new ground and air offensive in central Gaza, where it says Hamas militants have regrouped in the region. Despite the reports by local officials, Israel has said it was not aware of any civilian deaths at the school. This comes after Straight Arrow News recently reported the United Nations revised its numbers on the amount of Palestinian women and children who have been killed in the war. The World Agency saying the actual death toll was half of what was reported by the Hamas-run Ministry of Health in Gaza. The UN suggested the numbers could further decrease as they continue to investigate the death count. You can find that story now on the Straight Arrow News app. Extreme weather across the U.S. on Wednesday saw tornadoes touch down in multiple states. A tornado struck just outside Detroit, Michigan, killing a toddler and critically injuring his mother. Officials saying the tornado sent a tree into the family's home where the mother and child were sleeping. A similar scene in Montgomery County, Maryland, northwest of Washington, D.C., where a tornado toppled a tree into a home, trapping those inside. Authorities say at least 5 people were injured in the latest round of severe weather. Meanwhile, states in the south and west are experiencing the hottest days so far this year. A heat wave raising temps 20 degrees above average in some parts of California. Record highs are expected to continue into Friday. Finally this morning, the third time was the charm as Boeing's Starliner Atlas V rocket successfully launched from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station on Wednesday, carrying 2 NASA astronauts. This followed 2 previous attempts. The capsule reached orbit about 12 minutes after liftoff. Now the Starliner mission is facing new issues en route to the International Space Station. NASA reporting that 2 helium leaks were detected on the spacecraft, adding to a previously known leak. The new leaks were discovered after the spacecraft arrived in orbit. Mission Control informed astronauts Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams to shut down 2 valves to stop the leakage. The astronauts were guided through the process during a NASA broadcast. However, Boeing reports that the crew is safe and the spacecraft remains stable. They are expected to successfully dock at the International Space Station later today. These are your top stories for this Thursday. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Until then, I'm Kara Rucker. Have a great day.